Hello and welcome. I'm Tom Sinclair. This is Streaming Idiots. You have indeed reached the end of the earth if you've come to this show. It's great to have you with us today. And Giles is rolling on the floor laughing, not quite sure what about. But that's what happens when the chat catches your eye. I'm really delighted that you're here today. If you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook live, we would invite you to come on over to easternshorebroadcasting.com. Let's put that back up there. Oops, that's the wrong one. Let's go back. Oh my goodness, all my buttons rearranged themselves. That's no fun. Oh, I see what happened. Let's take that out. There we go. We'll try that instead. I've been having fun today playing with my X keys again. There's this little X key guy. Yep. And I may have added one shortcut too many. You never know. But it's great to be here today. I hope you'll come on over to easternshorebroadcasting.com. That way you can get in on the chat. But if you're watching us after the fact on Facebook or YouTube, we'd love to have you come for a live show Wednesday afternoons, 3 o'clock Eastern time in the U.S. and your time as appropriate. Today we're going to do a live tour of the Eastern Shore Broadcasting Studios. So it's not very impressive, but actually it's a great example of how you can do a lot of cool stuff without a lot of space and with not necessarily professional equipment. And that's the idea. And they're talking about haircuts in the chat. So maybe if you're watching live, maybe you don't need to go to the chat. It may not be any kind of great advantage for you. But we're going to do a studio tour and go through the studios and look at cams and mics and all the setup with the servers and green screens and lights and that type of thing. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Let's see. We're charging the phone. We're going to do this with vMix call over the phone, and I left it up and running thinking, okay, that's great. That's one less thing I'll have to worry about. And just before the show just now, I was taking a look at it and realized that leaving it up and running, even though it was on a charger, USB, it had gone from 50% to 9%. So we'll let it sort of fire itself back up here and hope we can get enough juice back into the phone, really, in order to use it as a camera. We're using it through vMix call. A couple notes coming up in April. Boy, time is slipping away. If you haven't already made your plans for NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters Conference and Trade Show in Las Vegas in April, you'll want to do that. It is going to kind of be the go-to meeting for live streamers in a lot of ways, because it'll have all that equipment, plus it'll have all the people that are live streaming. In fact, Streaming Idiots is going to have a meetup on April 10th, which is the Tuesday there at Scott Whitney's Podworks studio there in Las Vegas. So you'll get to see an operating live streaming studio, as well as get to hanging out with all the other Streaming Idiots. We'll have giveaways and door prizes, and so it should be a lot of fun. And we'll post the time yet. We're not sure whether it's going to be 5, 6, or 7, but we'll work that out as we get closer to the time. And a big shout out and thank you to Scott for opening up his studio again this year for that. We did it last year, and it was just a lot of fun. It wasn't anything fancy. It's definitely not going to be a fancy gig, but it was just fun to do it in a real live working studio. And then to hang out with all the folks that you've kind of met online and maybe corresponded with by email or chat. Tess says Tess just booked her flights today, so they're ready. Okay, very good. The other thing coming up in 2 weeks is going to be our introduction to vMix class, vMix 101, the basics of production. So if you have been trying vMix and playing around, or even if you're a semi-experienced user and you realize, God, I know what I know, but I know there's a lot I don't know. I haven't really covered the basics. I've just sort of gone and done the things I needed to do, but you don't know the other stuff, then this class might be for you. I'll be teaching the class. It'll be on Tuesday afternoons Eastern time, and it will be available on demand for class members after that. We'll have 6 classes, and it's going to cover all the basics. It will touch on just about everything that vMix can do. Some things we'll spend more time with because they're part of the basic building blocks that you have to have in order to be able to use vMix. And then other things that are probably maybe less common or less frequently used by the bulk of it, by people, we will not spend as much time with, but we'll touch on so that you know that those things are there. What else will we do? What else are we doing? There was something else I forgot to make show notes today because I was trying to get the studio cleaned up, and you'll be aghast at my cable management. Okay, so let's see what we've got here on the old. Oh, we're up to a big 10%. Well, we might have to. I tell you what. Why don't we start this on cable, on wire, and then we will join ourselves in progress. So let's turn on this. We're going to join the call in vMix. We're using vMix call for this, and let's make sure it's coming in. Open call management. Yeah, there it is. All right. Okay. So, what kind of connection we've got? Looks like it's a little iffy. Let's check and make sure what Wi-Fi we ended up on. I've got several Wi-Fi. Yeah, that Wi-Fi is not the best one. I've got several Wi-Fis here in the studio and for different people, so that they don't steal all my internet. You know how that goes. Okay, let's see if we got this connected. So we'll go back here, and we'll go back here, and we'll see if we have connected yet. Unable to connect. Sorry, the host has disconnected, or we are able to connect the call. Okay, press OK to attempt to reconnect. And I think that's going to do it. Yeah, there we go. So let's get rid of the chat, and we'll move that there so we can see, and then we'll let you guys see as well. So this is my view. There is my production PC, and you can see me in preview, and then of course the output on the right, and then all my inputs there across the bottom. This is my show tab, and I also have a vMix call tab. Let's get it a little closer there if we can. And a graphics tab, and a frames tab, and an audio tab, and a pre-show tab. So for example, my pre-show tab will show off just the inputs that I'll use in pre-show. My graphics tab, again, will just show the graphics that I'm using. My audio tab doesn't have a whole lot on it. My frames tab probably doesn't, yeah, it doesn't have anything. Here's my vMix call tab when I have multiple guests. And then my show tab that I'm using today. And this is running, well, I'll show you the PC in just a second. Here's the second monitor that I'm using. And that second monitor shows the chat on the left side, shows my audio mixer in the top right hand corner, and then allows me to monitor the number of folks watching now on YouTube. And since most of the folks that watch live watch on YouTube, that's the one that I keep my eye on. And you can see the graph there in YouTube in the bottom right hand corner of all the folks that have joined us. And then there's my chat. And I can keep an eye on you guys. And that's what I see. I've just recently added, we'll look across the room there, just added a big TV, just a TV set, nothing fancy, not a monitor, I shopped 55-inch TVs at, you know, Walmart and Best Buy and everywhere I could think of for probably 6 months. And then I think I picked this one up for $250, something really, really reasonable. Now, it's not a brand name. It's a Spectre, or no, it's a Scepter. That's what it is. It's a Scepter. So, but it does the job. And it allows me to see multi-view. And when I have a guest, the most important reason that I have it is so that when I have a guest, I can put their image up there. And as I'm looking into my PTZ Optics 12X SDI camera, which is now NDI HX, as I look into that lens, I can also see my guests, so that it makes it really easy to make eye contact with the TV, with my guest, and with you guys at the same time. All right. We can see that the battery has gone down on this phone, so let's pop off of this for just a second. And we'll come back here and see if we can't charge up just a sec. Boy, you try to anticipate all the things you can, and I was not anticipating running out of battery because I had 51% when I went away, and when I came back I had 9%. So let's see. Oh, there's the doorbell, so we're going to hear Jack Russell Terriers. I actually left the door open thinking that they might come in and visit the studio today so that you guys could meet them, because they are part of the studio. Rooney helped me out with the NDI. He was the NDI Jack Russell. Yeah, they're here. Yeah, they're here. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I tried to use the NewTek NDI camera app this morning, but for some reason it wouldn't connect to vMix. I'm not sure if somehow my phone got on a different network, although I did check that, and I got 3 wireless networks here, and I tried all 3 of them, and none of them would connect. So I'm not sure. I may have to download that app again. Perhaps it got corrupted somehow. Yes, Dan, he's barking at you because you're late. Yeah, that's a good idea, Kevin. We can use the PTZ Optics cam. We sure can do that. So let's see. What might we see? Well, let's see the world the way it really is. Shall we? So let's just take off the color key for the green screen for a second. And I'm going to zoom out so you can get a feel for the whole studio. And you can see behind me is the green screen. Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy. This is the $9 muslin cloth from eBay. And just don't tell my wife, but it's stapled to the wall. And I don't know if you can make out the outline. Starting right about there and moving to right about there is a darker section. And that darker section is actually a moving blanket, you know, one of those thick blankets that you throw over furniture when you're moving it. So we put that up there to try to absorb some of the audio that would be bouncing around the studio. We did a lot of work early on getting the audio right. To my left here, you can see another blanket up on the wall. Again, bought a grommet machine and put some grommets in it so that I could hang it up there easily. And again, not trying to soundproof the studio necessarily, but trying to deaden it so that the audio didn't bounce around as much. We'll go around a little bit further, and you can see behind the bookshelf is another moving blanket, and then on the wall facing me is another moving blanket. And then while we're talking about sound, one of my favorite things, right, is you can see right there, those two squares, the one with the pirate ship in it and the GFQ network. Those are some of my favorite t-shirts that I've grown out of. And the reason that they're there like that is that they're wrapped around a big piece of fiberglass insulation from ductwork. Sometimes they use fiberglass insulation to build ductwork with, and I stripped off all the shiny parts and then just covered up with the t-shirt material and using that to, again, absorb some of the audio. And I've got some others, but I'll have to whip the camera around the other direction in order to show that. Hold on a second. You're going to get seasick for just a minute, but let's go all the way around the studio and we'll start back again. Yeah, there we go. And you can see there are a couple other t-shirts wrapped around big chunks of fiberglass that help reduce the audio reflection here in the studio. Now you can see to the right of that and up a little bit, that mosaic is actually a giant throw rug. Again, nothing fancy, just trying to disrupt the sound pattern of the audio as it moves through the studio. And then probably one of my favorite pieces, let's see, you can almost see that right here. Not the wood piece, but next to it. Well, let's zoom out a little bit, and well, that is zoomed out. And this is essentially a giant piece of insulation board that has speaker cloth over it, and that speaker cloth will allow the audio to pass through, but then kind of be absorbed by the fiberglass. And that sits right in front of the server closet. So in here are some of our goodies, and let's see what we can see with the PTZ Optics cam. Probably not very much, because a monitor is going to get in the way. And you can probably hear immediately the difference in sound when I open the server closet. Let's see if we can. Let's try this vMix call for as long as it'll last, so we can see the server closet. So we're going to connect up here again. And there we go. Let's pop over to this guy for just a sec. And here in the server closet, I've got 3 servers. One of them I've cannibalized to build systems that I ended up loaning out or giving away. And so the top server, this is the guy that is the production PC. Nothing has a top on it because everything gets swapped out constantly. You can see now we've got, let's see, what do we have in here? A couple Intensity Pro cards, looks like a 750 Ti graphics card, and not much in the way of drives. Basically a solid state drive is the main drive, and then a 7200 RPM terabyte drive. Got a little router just perched up there, and you can see again, not too much. A lot of USB connections. And then there's the one I've cannibalized right there. And then this is the streaming and recording PC right there. Just a single drive. I think that's a 1050 video card in there. You see wonderful cable management. This is a real world studio. In fact, if you want to see good cable management, we're about to lose this camera, but you can see right there a floor mat going over tons and tons of cables. And then that's the back look right there. Again, cables everywhere. And there is, yeah, I think we just lost that camera. So let's go back to this one. And we'll go back here. Okay, so we lost we lost that camera, as I was afraid we would have. My bad in not making sure it was fully charged up. Other things that we've got here, as you can see right up here, I've got a Logitech C920 that's giving me my down shot. That's the shot that I used we used the other day when we showed off the X Keys joystick controller. It's really nice to have that around, and I'll use that. I've got another Logitech here on the desk, set up on a small tripod that I can use for special shots. Nice to have. The Logitech is a good third or fourth camera. I'm not a tremendous fan of it, especially if you're using a system that has limited resources, because it does tend to eat up CPU. Hold on just one sec. Yeah, the Linksys router I pulled out of storage, and the only purpose for the Linksys router is to hook up my phone to Wi-Fi so that I can get Facebook and internet on the phone. We got new Wi-Fi from Mediacom on the other side of the building, and the Wi-Fi is still being worked on, let's put it that way, and so it doesn't have enough strength at this point to reach to the other side, so we pulled that guy out of mothballs. Is my electric bill expensive? Not terribly. I mean, we had a cold snap for about 10 days where it was in the teens, tens, and well, I guess it was in the single digits, teens and 20s, and then 30s and 40s during the day. That was about 10 days, and so that blew us apart. But for the most part, it's pretty reasonable. The real struggle with the servers is in the summertime between the servers and the lights, and we'll look at lighting in just a second. It produces a lot of heat here in the studio, and unfortunately all the air conditioning equipment is right outside this window and right in the attic above here, which creates a big rumble, and so we'll pre-cool this section of the building and then turn the unit off while there's actually a live show going on. Let's see. So the Linksys you chuckled at. The bottom server, yes, the bottom server it's actually a second generation i7 2600K CPU, 16 gigs of RAM, and the 1050. I think it's just a regular 1050, or actually it may be a 750, but it's just the 50 series with the NVIDIA graphics. And it handles streaming and recording. Currently, today, it's streaming to Facebook and YouTube, and recording 1080p, 30 frames a second, 8 megabit video MP4. And we'll upload that to YouTube later so that we have a second YouTube video that doesn't include the pre-show and the post-show. YouTube, as you know, records everything that you broadcast. And so it has a lot of things that are things like, well, like this is almost post-show right now, but it records the post-show, but the show portion we upload just separately for folks that are just interested in the show. Let's see, the lighting in here, if you're interested in lighting, let's talk about audio first. There we go. That is my Audio Technica. Is this thing on? AT897. It is a condenser mic. It is a shotgun mic. It's phantom powered, and it is directed, as you can tell, right at my mouth. Boom, right there. So I'm pretending it's a flashlight, and I'm pointing it at the audio source, which of course is me today. It is connected to, and let's see if we can get it in the shot at all. Yeah, maybe we can. There we go. It's connected to the Behringer, and this is a Behringer UMC. Let's see if we can do a little rearranging and show it to you there. Oh, well, yeah, we've got a camera here. Let's see if we can use it. We'll see if we can get that guy in operation. So let's add an input, a camera input. Do we have it? No, it doesn't look like it's showing that one today. It must not be plugged in. Let's use the other cam. Can we just reassign that guy? Yeah, let's reassign him for the moment. All right. Now, there we go. So that is the Behringer UMC 404 HD. Whoops, sorry. And we can see that it's connected to the Audio-Technica here. I've just got the one channel being used here, and it outputs here for me to monitor. And this is nothing but a set of inexpensive Walmart earbuds, but throwing them over the back of my head, they kind of disappear. And this actually also is a mix between the live audio here and the audio coming out of vMix, so that I can monitor my guests. The Behringer is plugged in to the PC and powered by USB. That's that little gray cable right there. It was kind of funny at StreamCon last year. Martin Sinclair and Tim were setting up for the vMix Funtime live show there from StreamCon, and he couldn't find the power cable for his Behringer. He's got one just like this, and was, you know, knew that that was sort of a deal killer, but he didn't realize that it could be USB powered. So that was kind of fun to have him be able to see and learn a little bit there too. Okay, what else? Lighting. You can see I've got a backlight above me, just kind of a little halo light there, and it is a $3 fixture, clamp-on fixture from Walmart. Let's see, to my left, you can see there are 3 more lights. 1, 2, 3. 2 of them are pointed towards the green screen, and 1 of them pointed towards me. And then on the other side of the studio, the same kind of setup with 2 lights. Well, you can't see the third one, just out of view is blocked by the monitor. So for a green screen light, and then a second green screen light, and then a side light for the talent, or whatever you want to call me in that situation. This is not a classic 3-light situation with a fill light and a backlight and whatever the third light was. But it's really sort of a floodlight situation. The other lights that we have, let's see if we can see. Are we too close to be able to see? Yeah, there we go. Just a wash of light from an umbrella on the right side and an umbrella on the left side. And that gives me a pretty good lighting situation. Sometimes, depending on what colors I'm wearing, I'll have to adjust the intensity of the lights, and I have the lights on a rheostat so that I can turn them up and down. And you can see my desk. Generally, there's a laptop over there for email and such. Kenny says your adjustable mic arm is a clever use for the Logitech camera. Kenny, that mic arm gets used for that. It was used for the Logitech camera. I've used it for the Marshall camera. I used it for, believe it or not, I used it for the Canon HFR 200 camera, the R series. And it, you know, when you lock down those joints, it'll hold 3 or 4 pounds. It's really kind of cool. And they're, I think on Amazon, they're $6 or $8. It really is worth having a bunch of them. And obviously, you know, I've got one here for the mic stand. And that is a great way to get that boom mic in close to me, and just literally 18 inches difference from where it is to where I am. Nice little shock mount that Martin K recommended to me. Let's see. Mark asked, just wondering, has anyone ever used a FireWire audio device with vMix? Or is it worth the headache? Mark, I don't think it's worth the headache. But you certainly could. You certainly could. Let's see. What else did we want to talk about? We talked about audio. We talked about lighting. We talked about the green screen. We talked about sound deadening in the studio. Oh, I know. One other fun thing is that I've put a green screen over my desktop. Part of the reason for that is that I have some felt, white felt underneath it, to try to, again, help avoid some of the audio reflection, the sound reflection right here from a hard surface desk. So the felt was there to try to absorb some of the noise, and then it was so bright, and it was just felt that looks kind of feltish, that I went out and bought some green screen material. And sometimes, I haven't done it lately, but it's been fun. When I show an overhead shot, I'll put a fish tank video on and key out the green, so it looks like my desktop is a fish tank. That's always kind of fun. Brandon says I should close the closet. Okay, let's take a second and close the closet. We can definitely do that. You do appreciate. In fact, listen as I close the closet, and that'll be step one. And then as I put the soundboard in front of it. So let's see how we go there. All right, that's step one. I don't know what you're listening with your speaker, but I can still hear it a little bit. So let's put the soundboard in front. And that reduces that noise almost completely. Almost completely. And thank you for suggesting that, Brandon. The room here is probably about 12 by 12, 12 by 14, something like that. Danny says, wow, big difference in sound. And yeah, it was a lot of trouble, frankly, to move all that stuff to the closet and find extension cables for the monitors and all of the USB equipment. And then, of course, cameras and audio, everything had to go that direction. But the payoff was huge. And in any studio, next month I'll be moving into a different shop where we'll have more room to build PCs as well as set up another studio. As I move that direction, you know, I'll probably be storing all of the PC equipment in a closet somewhere. This one is not vented, at all. I generally leave that door open as I'm working in preparation for the show, and then after the show is over or after the post show is over, I'll open it back up again so the PC's kind of, you know, they're stuffed in there, and there's not much ventilation. The production PC, which is the one that I think does the most work, it has a water cooler, a Corsair water cooler on it, and then of course it's another i7 2600K CPU, and it's overclocked from 3.2 I think to 4 gigahertz. Audio skeletons in the closet, definitely. There's definitely some skeletons. Amnon wants to know what's above the ceiling. Well, Amnon, the roof is above the ceiling, and above the roof is the sky. Let's see. Other questions. If you've asked a question, if you would just go ahead and copy it and pop it back up here. I'd be happy to answer it. I'm currently using the XK24 as my processor, excuse me, as my work surface. You can see that guy right there, all lit up, and I'm testing the joystick controller, which is not connected to the camera right now. Can we see the second monitor from here? I don't think so. Let's see. Yeah, you can see just the edge of monitor number 3, and that's the monitor that shows me what's going on with the live stream. Excuse me. And I've got a separate license of vMix running on that, and that's doing the streaming and recording, and is and plays out the pre-show countdown timer is live on that machine, and that's a vMix 4K license. Here is a vMix Pro license, and the reason why it's the higher versions is, number one, I wanted to have PTZ control, but number two, I wanted to have the ability to use scripting. So my X keys here, well, no sense in picking it up if the camera can go down to it. My X keys here has the ability to store a shortcut, no surprise there, and the shortcut, can we zoom in a little bit? There you go. Oh, it's upside down. Let's turn it right side up. And one of these shortcuts, let's see what is right here, this one right here, says cut to show. That's the shortcut that I use when I go from the countdown timer to the pre-show, and that tells the second PC over there to basically change from one input to another input. So input number 1 is what you're seeing now. Input number 2 is that pre-show countdown, and that one simply cuts from, whoops, that one right there, cuts from the pre-show countdown to the show. And then there's another one that says cut to close, and that one cuts to input number 7. In fact, I can show you. Let's see, will that work? We'll pop over to input number 7. Nope. Okay, well, I was messing around with my X keys beforehand, and obviously I broke something. We'll have to fix it later. But that allows me to run out the show after the post show is over. If there was any latency, if I cut that show right then, it will cut you off right then. Even though there's 9 seconds of latency, it doesn't play out the latency. It cuts the feed right then and there. So I'll let that play for another minute or two. And sometimes somebody will have a bad connection and they'll get some buffering, and somehow Facebook or vMix senses that and doesn't cut out the part they missed. It just picks up where they left off. So they might end up a minute behind. So I'll let that play out for another minute or two after the fact, just to make sure that you guys get to watch the whole show. Let's see. There's some talk about some Prusanos FireWire connections. Scott says, or is it doing the recording and the streaming? That looks like part of another question. Let's see if we can look back on that. I don't see the other part of that. Sorry, Scott, have to ask again. Let's see. Kevin says, Tom, one thought on your connectivity issues with the NDI Connect app might be due to the bandwidth restrictions of the Linksys router. Might be. Very well might be. Very well might be. But it was here, and it was free. and it serves its purpose in terms of giving me an internet connection on a camera. But you're probably right. Richard says, one man, one computer has gone on the wayside. Yeah, you know, for all those years of being that VidBlaster guy and doing the show, that VidBlaster guy, and being a reseller for VidBlaster as well as a PC builder, you were pretty well forced to do everything in one box. There weren't a whole lot of options. I think Nick Davidson and I crafted a pair of systems that communicated video back and forth using some Intensity Pro cards, but that was a little kludgy, I thought. And I was glad when NDI came out and when vMix came out with NDI that we could do it all over the network. And at that point, I never looked back. Now on Sunday mornings at church, I'll do a one PC production. One PC, one PTC optics cam, and then hooking into the sound system for the church. And that's pretty simple setup, pretty bulletproof, pretty easy for volunteers to use. This setup here is probably would not be easy to pop somebody into this chair and said, okay, start using it. There's so many things that are very customized specifically to the needs of this show. But that's the beauty of vMix, is that each show can have its own preset, its own set of shortcuts. Scott said, you said the other PC was streaming and recording. Yes, yes, it is. It's streaming to Facebook at 2.7 megabits per second, a 720 30 frame a second feed. And then to YouTube 1080p at 6 megabits per second, and then recording 8 megabits per second 1080p as an MP4. And it's running at about 25%. Now it looks like the stream button is flashing, so I don't know if that means that we've got an internet issue, or if you guys, yeah, and YouTube says video output is low, so we may get a little buffering here. That's interesting. We'll have to check some more on that. Yeah. Okay. Cliff asks, how long of a cord can I get for the X keys? If I'm across the room from the switcher, do they make a long extension cord? Cliff, my X keys are connected into a USB hub, a powered hub, that is connected by two 10-foot USB extension cords to my PC, and that seems to work pretty well. I suspect, yeah. Giles is saying you can get the active cables that can go a long way. In my case, basically, I needed a bunch of different USB connections here at my desktop, and so I just extended it like that. Scott says it's buffering a little bit. Yep, got that. It's definitely on my end. Let's see. I'm just going to drop the feed for a second, and I'll be right back. Okay, what I did was I did a quick speed test and saw that my upload speed had dropped down to about 10. So I quickly reconfigured vMix to 1080p at a lower bit rate, 4.5, and to Facebook at a lower bit rate, 1.5. And we'll see. And then have to find out why in the world my upload speed all of a sudden dropped to next to nothing. It's a new installation of a product I've been using before. It's from Mediacom Cable, and basically they have a DOCSIS 3.1 modem that bonds together multiple channels for download and upload to give me what is supposed to be a gigabit download and 100 meg upload. And just looking at it now, doing a speed test, I got the 94 megabits per second download, which, you know, that's fine, but I'm paying for a gig. And then 14.2 megabits upload, and that's not at all fine because I'm paying for 100. So we'll see. We've got a tech coming out pretty soon. So there you can see. That's what it looks like. Someone text Tom that he's going in and out. Yep, I got that. All right, I should be back. And he stopped it. Net neutrality stopped. Stop. You're using too much bandwidth. You need to pay more. Actually, I don't mind paying more. It's kind of like gasoline. You know, the more you use, the more you pay. The faster you go, the more you use. And so I'm okay with that. So we see we went to 0 on YouTube for a moment and to 0 on Facebook for a moment. Now we're back. But that's a grand example of something that's out of your control and not having the ability to do anything except, you know, cut and run, find out what the problem is, either fix it or work around it. And in my case, we just did a workaround. And let's see what vMix is saying. Yeah, right now the stream is good. YouTube says the stream is good. And so we are back. But now on YouTube and Facebook, I'll have two different recordings. On YouTube, I can graft them together, I think. On Facebook, I won't be able to do that. So there you go. Daniel suggests that I duct tape CDs around my Ethernet cable to get better internet speed. I think, wasn't there a video on YouTube that suggested to do that? How you could double your internet speed. I thought that was pretty funny. Let's switch over there. And then I'm using a KVM switch to switch between the two computers so that I can use one keyboard and one mouse. Brandon says, so you didn't have to get a new stream key for Facebook. You know, Brandon, that's interesting, is that, and while I'm saying that, let me just make sure that that Facebook feed is indeed working. One of the things, yeah, there it is, we're live, that Facebook has added just recently is, what do they call it? They call it something. And they call it a persistent stream key. And the idea, they say, is that this can be reused every time you go live. You can only broadcast one live video at a time with your persistent stream key, but basically you don't have to get a brand new stream key each time. And so that's pretty cool. I'm liking that. And in fact, the testing that some of you saw me doing this morning was basically testing to make sure I could stop and start and stop and start and stop and start and keep the same key in there for Facebook. Of course, for YouTube, you can do that. And at one point, I think I waited about 10 minutes in between stops and starts to make sure that that Facebook had actually closed out that one particular stream before I started another one. And I don't think you guys could see that because I didn't have it live, but I was watching it on the preview monitor in Facebook. But it it's a good thing. I think Facebook's moving in the right direction. Obviously, they're doing a lot with video, and it's unlike my prediction for, I think it was my 2016 or 2017 prediction that Facebook Live would be a bust. So so there you go. Let's see. Scott Pienta suggests that I duct tape CDs to my ears. And Chris says cheap bonded systems are fine until packet orders are mixed up. Well, I don't think that's the problem. I think the bonding is actually happening inside the modem itself. Scott says he's getting a live view to test, and he will show on his show in a few weeks. That's cool. And Danny said, your crash just gave me a thought. Keep my Verizon Jetpack happy in case the internet goes out. And that is a good option, assuming that the PC that you're using has Wi-Fi, or that your Jetpack has an IP jack, an Ethernet jack. Kenny wants to know, how's my neighbor's internet? You can do the right thing and make it legal and make them a sponsor. Well, I think they have slower internet than me. Rich says, here's a tip. If you use Restream, you can drop your source connection for 2 to 3 seconds, and you will have a continuous stream for Facebook and YouTube. I thought you could drop it longer than that, Rich. Only 2 or 3 seconds is not long. I mean, basically what I wanted to be able to do, and I did here, but of course it meant you guys got cut off, which was to do a quick speed test and to see what was going on, see if it was a problem with my internet, or was it a problem, for example, with Facebook. And so in this case, it was an internet problem on my hand, on my part. All right. Well, that concludes the grand Facebook tour. And let's see, can we go back to our fancy looking backdrop here? I think we can with the push of a button. There we go. All right. Now I'm back in the studio again. And let's see if we can get our lower thirds to come back in again. Yeah, maybe not. Oh, well. This is good. Any other questions before we wrap up here? Ed says that 5G is supposed to start rolling out as soon as the 4th quarter of this year. The rumor about bandwidth sounds like Santa Claus running for office. There you go. So Dave says, thanks for the tour. Thank you, Dave. Rich says, no refreshments after the tour. I've got my Russian spice tea here in my my chicken mug. Kevin says, so Tom, are you going to do a moving vlog? Probably not. Probably not. We'll see. Daniel says, what do you think about the Epiphan Webcaster X2 to do the actual streaming to Facebook or YouTube and just use a computer to produce the show? Yeah, that's an interesting thought, Daniel. I doubt if I would do that, simply because I already have 2 computers and it's a workflow that's working well for me. And I like the ability to go ahead and start the stream and have the PC give you guys a countdown to when the live stream begins on a separate PC, so that I can do whatever I want to on the production PC. We've got the streaming and recording PC over here that's kind of getting you guys in the loop with what's going on. It runs the little scroll across the top and counts down the time, as well as telling you the current local time here. And then I've got a separate PC that I can do all the last minute preparations of any graphics that I need, any cameras that I need to add, anything I need to add as a desktop capture maybe, or a web browser input, or a vMix call. And that way there's no chance of those crossing over, because I'm not doing anything at this point or at that point where there is a crossover. The active window, excuse me, the active input on the streaming PC is, for this show, is not active, and it carries the audio. So there's no way that the audio and the video are going to get out to you until I say go. And what that allows me to do is to have a great conversation with any guests ahead of time. We can talk off the air, but really we are live streaming, and have the ability to, they can raise questions or share concerns that don't become part of the broadcast. Perhaps there's a way to do that with the Epifan. My guess is, for the $300 that I've got in this streaming PC, again, there's not much to it. I've got more in the license than I do in the PC itself. That I wouldn't use the Epifan for that. When I do the classes, like the vMix 101 class coming up, or the sales and marketing class that Scott just finished up, I use that second PC to actually record those. So all it does is record. Excuse me. And it's just nice to have that second one there. My guess would be, if all I had was something like the Epifan, I'd figure out how to make it work. But in this case, having more this is a situation where more is more for me anyway. Danny wants a tour of the fridge. Can't reach the fridge from here. We'd have to go mobile again, and we're all out of battery. Rich says, what's next on your wish list, Tom? Wireless NDI transmitter? What's next on my wish list? I think I'd like to upgrade my production PC to an eighth generation instead of a second generation, an 8th generation CPU, and probably upgrade the graphics card from a 750 to like a 1070 or even a 1080 if I can get one. Chris says he has the option to buy a TriCaster control surface. Does anyone know how to integrate this into vMix? Chris, I know there's some people that are trying to do that because they've been able to get the control surfaces for pennies on the dollar, but I don't know that anybody that's been successful in doing that yet. And Todd has an old Trinity Globecaster control switcher. Yep. My guess is, especially with the Globecaster, that it was such a proprietary system, it probably won't work. Amnon says he's been doing this from the start. He's been doing what from the start? That's the question. Oh my goodness. Cruxworks says, wait till you see the prices of the GTX 1070 and 1080. Oh, I know. I'm building a system right now with a 1070 in it, and it was tough to get. And I've got some coming up with 1080s in it, and they're going to be tough to get too, 3 times the normal precise. Oh, Amnon says he's been using 2 PCs. That's right. Amnon has been using before it was popular. Kane says you aren't going to get a TriCaster control surface working on another system. Well, there you go. That's from a TriCaster guy himself. Kane is a tech for TriCaster. And Kenny says, here's a short thread on the vMix forum about control surface integration. So maybe there's a way after all. Don't know. We would have to see. Okay, well, let's close out this part, and we'll go into the post-show, even though we're really sort of there. But let's give this an official ending, and I'll be right back. Well, maybe I won't be right back. We may have to do this by hand. Let's go here.